Thanks for tuning in. I'm Rob Parker from Peach Software, and I'm here to talk about the pricing that is in the Peach product control screen and throughout the Peach system. So before we get going and looking at the screens in Peach, I just want to go through the difference between gross profit margins and markups and how that's created. So gross profit margin is the source of truth from an accounting perspective. GP, or gross profit margin, will always be based on the average cost. And the average cost is always used or always calculated by adding up the total of a part number in stock, the cost of it, and then dividing it by the quantity. That's how you calculate average cost. The reason we use markup is to actually generate the selling prices, but it's not the way we calculate the profit. So we use markup to create selling price. We use gross profit margin to monitor your profitability. If the GP percentage is 50%, that means half of what you've sold a product for is yours to keep. It's your profit. And then, therefore, to achieve a 50% GP, you need to double your cost. So you would need a 100% markup to achieve the 50% gross profit margin. In Peach Software, we've got three costs. We've got the last cost, the current cost, and the average cost. Now, depending on the settings in the background, these may act slightly differently, but the average cost will always move when you receive stock. So going through these three costs, you've got your last cost. Now, usually this represents the last time you purchased a product. Doesn't matter where you bought it from, doesn't matter if it was on special or if you had to pay a premium because it was out of stock with your normal supplier. The last cost will always represent the last time you purchased the product and how much you purchased it for. The second of the costs is the current cost. The current cost is normally a stable cost because it represents the standard cost from your preferred supplier. Now, it's usually used to generate the selling prices simply because it is the cost that would normally stay stable. So it wouldn't be varying if you had to buy at a premium from another supplier, or if you bought a bulk lot and the price went down. You wouldn't want that to reduce your selling price. So you use current costs, your standard buy price from your preferred supplier, to generate your selling prices. And at the goods in, you can control whether these costs change or not. Now we get to average cost, and this is where sometimes people get a little confused, but let's clear that up. So it's always recalculated when you receive stock. If I bought 10 widgets and I bought them for $1 each, that means I've got 10 in stock. So my total stock value is $10. If I want to work out my average cost at that point, I just say I've got $10 worth of stock, I've got 10 widgets in stock, so $10 divided by 10 is $1 each, that's the average cost. If I bought another 10, and this time I paid $1.50, I'd have an additional $15 worth of stock, which means my total stock would be $25. So altogether, I've got $25 worth of widgets. But how many do I have? I've now got 10 plus 10, I've now got 20. So to get the average cost now, you need to divide $25 total stock value divided by total stock, which is 20. Now my average cost is $1.25. So that's how the average cost works. So the average cost is the source of truth for your organization. It calculates the profit, the money you've made. It aligns with the old accounting adage of cost of goods sold is the opening stock value plus your purchases less your closing stock. You can't disagree with this. It doesn't drill down by the part number. It doesn't depend on first in, first out. It basically is the cost of goods sold to calculate the profit on your business. So I want to take you to the Peach product control screen where some people find some confusion, but I'm going to explain to you first the way it works and the way it calculates your selling prices. So in the product control screen, you can generate your selling prices based on two options, one or the other. One is you mark up on the current cost. So we'll always use your current cost. Doesn't matter what happens with your average cost or your last cost, it'll always use your current costs to create your selling prices from your markup table. The reason that's an option is because your current cost, as I've said, is your most stable cost. It's your standard buy price from your preferred supplier, and there is a lot of controls in the system to make sure that's a stable cost. The other option you have is to use your markup table to create your selling prices based on the highest of the last, the average, or the current cost. Depending on your business, you may find this a better option because it'll always protect your margin, even if your last cost goes up above your current cost. So important, the display in Peach software, the gross profit displayed in Peach software, regardless of how you mark up. So you might mark up based on current cost. You may end up using markup on your last because that might be your highest. But the gross profit margin reported in product control is always going to be based on your average cost because that's the source of truth, and that goes with the old accounting practice. So that's the way it will display the gross profit margin in the Peach product control screen. So let's go there now and have a look. So back in Peach product control screen, where I can explain this a little better, we've got this test product set up and I've got my cost set up so that we can easily tell the difference between the current cost, the last cost, and average cost. And then I've got my markup table up here, and I'm on markup code 004. So 004 says price A should be 100% markup, price B 50, and price C 20. So going back to what we spoke about, 100% markup should give us a 50% GP. Now, in the settings in the background, I've said to the software, I want to work out my selling price based on the highest of the three costs. So current, last, and average cost. So the highest is $30, that's my cost. And by the way, I've turned off the GST so that that doesn't have to get included in this example. But basically my last cost, the highest of the three costs, is $30 with 100% markup. That's $60, so it's double. And the GP is 50%. So that's pretty easy to understand. But now let me show you a screen that may confuse you. So now we're in product control, but I've changed the setting in the background. It's the same product, same costs. And if you remember, I've set the cost quite a long way apart, which is a bit of an unusual situation. But now I've told the software to always mark up and create selling prices based on the current cost, which, as I mentioned, is normally the most stable cost because it's your standard buy price from your preferred supplier, and you can stop that from changing in the goods in transaction screen if you like. So now we're seeing some negative margins, and why are we seeing those? It doesn't make much sense until I explain it. So in the markup table, markup number 4, 100% markup on price on the current cost, remember. So back in the product control screen, the current cost is $10, so the selling price is $20. Now, because gross profit margin is always represented here, so GP, not the gross profit margin based on the current or last. It's always based on the average cost, as I mentioned, always the source of truth. So if I was to have my current cost and my average cost so far apart, it would actually reflect badly here, because although it's doing what I've asked it to do, it's making this GP percentage from 30. I could go into there if I like, and I can change that to 50, and it'll recalculate the price to be correct based on the average cost, because this column here is always looking at the average cost. So you can play around with that. Normally your costs would be much closer together, so we might see that the current cost is 10, but the last cost might be 12, and the average cost is probably more like 10, I would say, enter. And so now your margins look about right. So remember, your margins aren't reflective of the markup that you've put on. They're reflective of the result of your markup, your selling price, and the average cost. So there you have it. I hope that clears it up a little bit. But if you have any questions, let me know or call support. But what I might do is I might post that PowerPoint slideshow up onto our internet, and you can search for that. And if you don't know how to search, let me show you. So I'll post that up on the internet, as I said. I'll put that on our website To find it, all you need to do is go to Help and Features and then Help and Features tab, and then in here search for GP or Markup. So if I search for Markup now, it'll come up with the calculator or GP versus Markup, and that'll both take me to the same page in Chrome. So let's go there. There it is there. And I'll put it in this page so that you can read through that slide that I've produced. Thanks for watching, and look forward to talking to you again.